I have lived long enough to know that time does not heal all wounds. Some it simply teaches you how to carry. When I was young, I believed time was endless. I thought life stretched forward like a wide road, full of turns I could take later, decisions I could postpone. I did not know then how quickly later becomes never, or how easily a single moment of hesitation can echo across decades. I am an old man now. My hands shake when I write. My eyes grow tired before my thoughts do. I sit in the same chair each evening, near the window where the light fades gently, and I let memory come to me as it always does, uninvited, persistent, and full of faces I once loved. Most of all, it brings me her. I do not know why now, at the end of things, she returns to me so clearly. Perhaps it is because the noise of life has finally quieted. Perhaps because there is nothing left to distract me from the truth I buried long ago. Or perhaps memory, like love, waits patiently until it is finally allowed to speak. I was 17 when I first saw her. It was late spring, the kind that carries warmth without weight, when the air still feels new and the days seem to stretch endlessly ahead. I remember standing outside the grocery store on Main Street, pretending to examine a crate of apples I had no intention of buying. I had nowhere to be and nowhere I truly belonged, so I lingered where boys like me often did, half visible, half forgotten. And then she walked past. She was not extraordinary in the way stories often describe such moments. There was no dramatic music, no sudden stillness of the world. She was simply a girl walking down the street, her hair tied back with a ribbon the color of autumn leaves, her steps unhurried, her expression calm. But something in me changed. I felt it before I understood it, a tightening in my chest, a sudden awareness of myself, of the space I occupied in the world. I looked up just as she glanced in my direction. Our eyes met for a moment, brief and accidental. She smiled. It was a small smile. Polite. Unremarkable to anyone else. To me, it felt like a door opening. I did not speak. I did not even move. I watched her pass as though I had been rooted to the ground, my heart beating far too loudly for such a quiet moment. When she disappeared down the street, the world felt strangely dimmer, as though something essential had gone with her. I stood there longer than necessary, staring at nothing, trying to understand what had just happened. I would spend the rest of my life trying to understand it. I began noticing her everywhere after that. At school, in the hallways between classes. In the library, where she liked to sit near the windows. Sometimes in the afternoons, walking home with a book tucked against her chest, her steps light and unhurried. I learned her habits without meaning to. The way she brushed her hair back when she was thinking. The way she bit her lip when she was nervous. The way her laughter came easily, freely, as though joy were something natural rather than earned. We spoke occasionally, though never at length. A greeting. A shared comment about an assignment. A smile exchanged in passing. Nothing that would have suggested to an outside observer that she occupied my thoughts from morning until night. I was not bold then. I was not the kind of boy who took chances or made grand gestures. I watched others do that, boys who laughed loudly, who leaned too close, who spoke with confidence I did not possess. They moved through life as though it belonged to them. I, on the other hand, moved carefully. Quietly. As if afraid of disturbing something fragile. And yet, in my silence, something grew. Love is too strong a word for what I felt at first. It was admiration. Curiosity. A gentle pull I did not yet recognize for what it was. But over time, it deepened. It settled into me, steady and insistent, until I could no longer deny it. I loved her. I loved her in the way only the young and inexperienced can love, completely, hopelessly, without understanding the cost. There was a day, not long after we finished school, when I nearly told her. We were walking together along the river that cut through the edge of town. The water moved slowly, reflecting the pale sky, and the air smelled faintly of grass and sunlight. We had been talking about nothing in particular, books, plans, the small uncertainties of growing up. She stopped near the railing and leaned against it, looking out at the water. "Do you ever feel like everything is about to change?" she asked. I remember the way her voice sounded in that moment. Soft. Thoughtful. Unaware of the storm it stirred in me. "Yes," I said. "All the time." She smiled, still looking at the river. "Me too." That was it. That was the moment. The words were there, pressing against my throat, begging to be released. I could feel them, heavy and urgent, demanding to be spoken. I wanted to tell her that she was the reason I felt restless, the reason my thoughts wandered, the reason the world seemed sharper and more vivid when she was near. But fear is a powerful thing. Fear of rejection. Fear of embarrassment. Fear of losing even the small place I held in her life. And so I said nothing. We stood there in silence for a few moments longer, then continued walking as though nothing had happened. She talked about her plans for the summer. I nodded and listened, my heart pounding in my chest. That night, I went home and wrote my first letter to her. I poured everything onto the page, my feelings, my hopes, my confusion. I wrote until my hand ached and the ink blurred. When I finished, I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. I told myself I would give it to her someday. I did not. The years moved forward, as they always do. She went to college. I stayed behind. Life began to separate us in quiet, irreversible ways. We wrote a few letters at first, polite, careful things filled with safe topics. Over time, even those faded. I continued to see her occasionally when she came home to visit. Each time, she seemed a little more confident, a little more certain of herself. And each time, I felt the same familiar ache in my chest. I watched her laugh with friends. I watched men notice her. I watched her life unfold without me in it. And still, I remained silent. I wrote more letters than I can count. Some were only a page. Others filled entire notebooks. I wrote about my days, my thoughts, my feelings for her. I wrote about the life I imagined we might have had, though I never truly believed it would come to pass. The letters became my confession, my refuge, my quiet rebellion against the life I was too afraid to live. I told myself I was protecting her. I told myself I was being unselfish. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was afraid. Afraid of hearing no. Afraid of changing everything. Afraid of discovering that the love I carried so carefully might not be returned. And so I chose silence. Years passed. Then one day, I learned she had married. I heard it in passing, from someone who had no idea what those words would do to me. I smiled, congratulated them, and went home. I sat alone that night in the dark, feeling something inside me finally give way. It was not anger. It was not bitterness. It was acceptance. I wrote her another letter that night, the longest one yet. I told her everything I had never said. I folded it carefully, placed it with the others, and closed the drawer. I never opened it again. Now, as I sit here decades later, I understand what I did not then. Some loves are not meant to be lived. Some are meant to be carried. They shape you quietly. They teach you patience, longing, restraint. They become a part of who you are, even if they are never spoken aloud. I do not regret loving her. I regret only that I was too afraid to let her know. And so I write this now, not for her, but for myself. To give shape to a life lived in quiet devotion. To finally speak the words I carried for so long. This is only the beginning. There is more to tell, about the years that followed, the loneliness, the small joys, the slow understanding that some choices cannot be undone. But for now, this is enough. This is where it began. The days after she left for college were strange. The streets we had walked together seemed emptier, somehow smaller, like the world had shrunk to fit around her absence. I found myself wandering the same paths, touching the railings, the stone walls, the riverbank where we had paused that day. Every corner, every crack in the pavement reminded me of her, and every reminder ached with the weight of what I had never dared to say. Letters arrived at first. Careful, polite letters, filled with mundane details about classes, friends, and the strange exhilaration of independence. She wrote as though life itself had opened before her, as though every step was a discovery. I wrote back, my own words measured, deliberate, carefully neutral, careful not to reveal the storm inside me. I told her about my days at the mill, the work I did with my hands, the small discoveries I made while reading books she had once recommended. I told her nothing of my heart, and everything of my solitude. It is strange now to remember how much I longed for her letters, how I would wait by the mailbox for hours, turning the key over and over in my fingers, imagining the envelope arriving with her handwriting across the front. And yet, when I read her words, I felt a pang, a mixture of joy and sorrow, because they reminded me of what I could not claim. I was happy for her, of course. I truly was. But happiness shared at a distance is a peculiar kind, and it carries its own loneliness. There were times I thought I might visit her at college. The thought came quickly, like a sudden impulse, and vanished just as fast. What would I say? How could I explain decades of silence and hesitation? The courage I lacked in youth had not grown with me. I stayed behind. I walked the streets of my town, watched the seasons pass, and wrote letters I never sent, filling notebooks with words that existed only for me. I remember one evening in particular. Autumn had arrived, sharp and golden, painting the town with dying leaves. I had finished my work at the mill, my hands raw and aching, and I walked toward the river, the place that had always felt like our secret refuge. The wind rattled the bare branches, carrying the smell of damp earth and distant fires. I closed my eyes for a moment and imagined her there beside me, as she had been countless times in memory. I could almost hear her voice, the soft inflections, the gentle laughter that had once unsettled me so completely. And then I imagined speaking, really speaking, for the first time. I pictured myself turning to her and telling her everything, how I had loved her from the first moment, how I had watched her grow, how I had written 1,000 letters that never left my drawer. I imagined the way her eyes might widen, the way she might smile, the way the world might tilt just slightly to accommodate our truth. But when I opened my eyes, she was not there. The river flowed silently, indifferent to my longing. The world carried on. And once again, I walked home alone, carrying my silence like a stone in my chest. Life continued, as life always does. I took work where I could find it, sometimes at the mill, sometimes in small shops, doing what was required to survive. Friends married, moved away, started families, and built lives that I could only watch from the sidelines. I remained, the quiet observer, the man who measured the world in small increments, careful not to disrupt its flow. And yet, even in the monotony, she returned to me, often. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in sudden memories, sometimes in quiet moments when the world felt still. I would see her laughter in the curve of a stranger's smile. I would hear her voice in the rustle of leaves along the riverbank. I would feel her presence in a shaft of sunlight that fell through the window. I suppose that is what love becomes when it is never spoken. It does not fade. There was one summer when I nearly broke my own silence. She had returned to town for a visit, and I heard she would be attending a mutual friend's wedding. I debated whether to go. I argued with myself for hours, pacing the small room I called my study, weighing the risk and the desire. Finally, curiosity won. I would go, I told myself. I would watch, at the very least, and perhaps I could find a moment to speak. The wedding was splendid, full of light and laughter, music and clinking glasses. She was there, radiant and unassuming, moving among friends and family. I followed her gaze in the crowd, noting the way others smiled at her, the way she carried herself as though she owned the room without needing to. My chest tightened, and I realized once more how little courage I had gained in all these years. I found her briefly during the reception, a moment when the music shifted and the crowd thinned. My throat tightened. Words formed and disappeared, vanishing before I could grasp them. I smiled politely, made some trivial remark about the flowers, and walked away. She smiled back, oblivious to the tempest I carried inside. And just like that, the opportunity vanished, as opportunities so often do. I went home that night and wrote in my journal, as I always did. I wrote about what I had seen, what I had felt, what I had failed to do. I wrote in detail, recording the precise angle of her smile, the way her hair fell across her shoulder, the gentle warmth of her presence. And when I finished, I closed the book and sat for a long time, feeling the quiet ache that had accompanied me for decades. It was during these years that I began to understand the full measure of my fear. I realized that it was not the fear of rejection alone, nor the fear of embarrassment. It was the fear of change, of altering something delicate and beautiful with words that might be inadequate. I feared that by confessing my love, I would fracture the world we had shared, fragile as it was. And yes, the letters I wrote remained hidden. Some were full of admiration, some of longing, some of despair. I documented her life, my own, the world around us, as a way to feel connected while remaining at a safe distance. Each unsent letter became a monument to my hesitation, a testament to the life I refused to risk. And yet, even in silence, life moved forward. She graduated, traveled, began her career. I heard fragments of her accomplishments from mutual friends, small rumors of happiness, of new friendships, of a life fully lived. I was glad for her. I truly was. And yet, the knowledge settled on me like a stone. I had chosen to remain in my small, safe world, and she had moved into one I could not enter. Years passed, and the pattern became familiar. I would see her briefly, often at social gatherings, always in passing. I would watch her interact with others, noting the small expressions, the subtleties of her manner, and I would leave unchanged. Each encounter was a reminder of what I had missed, yet also of the love I carried faithfully, silently, without expectation. One day, long after the letters had piled in drawers and my youth had become memory, I learned she had married. I heard it casually, almost as an aside. The word struck me with the quiet force of inevitability. She was happy, I was told, and I smiled. I congratulated the speaker and went home. Alone. Alone, I realized, is a strange companion. It does not judge, does not speak, does not remind you of your failings. It simply waits. And it is in that quiet, in the unbroken nights, that I began to understand what I had lost, not her, not even the possibility of love, but the courage to act. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to send. Not to show her. Simply to speak the truth that had been carried silently for decades. I told her everything, my love, my admiration, my regret, my fear. I folded it carefully, placed it in the drawer with the others, and closed it. I never opened it again. Some nights, I returned to that habit, writing letters to her, speaking words I will never send. They are my only solace, my only way of giving voice to a life spent in quiet devotion. I have learned that love, when unspoken, does not vanish. It transforms. It shapes you. It becomes part of the rhythm of your life, the quiet undercurrent beneath all else. I am older now. The mill has closed. Friends have moved or passed. The streets where I once walked are unfamiliar, rebuilt, altered. And yet, in the quiet of the evening, when the lamp is lit and the wind sighs against the window, she is there, always. A presence in memory, a fire I have carried for decades. I do not know what would have happened had I spoken. Perhaps she would have smiled and turned away. Perhaps the world would have shifted, small and fragile as it was, into something new and terrifying. Perhaps we would have found happiness. Or perhaps I would have known disappointment, and the ache would have been different, but no less real. I will never know. That is the nature of a life lived in silence. That is the weight of a love never confessed. The years pressed on, carrying me forward whether I wished it or not. I found work where I could, as a clerk, a laborer, sometimes filling in wherever hands were needed. The world moved around me with an ease I never possessed. I worked hard, learned small trades, built a quiet life, yet it was never the life I had dreamed. And all the while, she remained. Not near me, not in reach, but inescapable in memory. She haunted me gently, like sunlight slipping through the cracks of a door, warm but untouchable. I had loved her for so long that I could no longer imagine life without that silent devotion, that quiet ache that never left me. I met other women. I smiled politely at them. I went on dates, once or twice, and found them tolerable, sometimes even pleasant. And yet, none could hold my attention. None stirred the same warmth, the same fire, the same fragile longing. My heart, it seemed, had been given in full so long ago, and it had not returned. There were evenings when I wandered the streets of town, retracing old paths. The river, the bridge, the park bench where we had once talked, everything remained in some form, though changed by time. Yet in those walks, I was not seeking her, exactly. I was seeking the moments I had lost, the words I had not spoken, the courage I had never summoned. I remember one winter evening vividly. Snow had fallen overnight, softening the world into muted shades of white and gray. I walked the old streets slowly, my coat pulled tightly against the wind. The bakery on the corner was shuttered, its windows fogged with cold. The river lay beneath a thin layer of ice, the water still moving quietly beneath. I paused on the bridge, gripping the railing, and imagined her standing there beside me. I imagined telling her everything. But I did not speak. I never spoke. Instead, I turned and walked home, my steps crunching against the frozen snow, my chest tight with the ache of what might have been. It was during these years that I began to see the consequences of my silence in stark relief. Friends married and moved away. Parents grew older and passed. Colleagues retired, and younger workers took their places. And I, ever cautious, ever hesitant, remained the same. I had a home, yes, and work, yes, and the occasional companionship of neighbors. But I had never claimed the life I wanted. I wondered often if she thought of me. Perhaps she did, briefly, in passing, as one recalls a familiar face from youth. Perhaps she remembered the boy who had been quiet, awkward, and attentive, and smiled. Or perhaps I had already vanished from her memory, folded into the harmless shadows of the past. I did not begrudge her if that were so. She owed me nothing, not a glance, not a thought, not a memory. And yet, even knowing that, I could not help myself. I wrote letters, always letters. Dozens, perhaps hundreds. Some were short, some filled entire notebooks. I wrote of my life, my work, my thoughts, and my feelings, never intending to send them. Each letter was an attempt to speak without risk, a way to exhale the truth I could never say aloud. I wrote about my fear. About my hesitation. About the longing that had never left me. About the knowledge that I would never speak these words aloud. I wrote until my hands cramped, until the ink blurred, until my eyes were tired and the house was silent around me. And still, I did not send them. Life has a way of carrying on regardless of our intentions. She married, I learned long after, and I was glad for her. I truly was. But that knowledge did not lessen the ache of what I had never claimed, what I had never spoken, what I had carried silently for decades. I began to understand, as I grew older, that regret is not always loud. It does not always scream or gnaw at them. Time has a strange way of accumulating in a person. One day, you are young, full of hope, letters, and half-spoken words. The next, decades have passed, leaving you with quiet rooms, worn furniture, and the echo of a life mostly observed rather than lived. I know this now, as I sit in the same chair where I have written so many letters, surrounded by the soft dim light of a lamp that has become a faithful companion. The house has grown silent. The walls are lined with the muted colors of old photographs, a few bookshelves sagging under the weight of forgotten stories. Outside, the wind moves through the trees, carrying the faint scent of rain or snow or whatever season it is, as if the world itself insists on reminding me that it continues. Inside, I remain the same. The years have altered my body, yes, but my heart is still burdened with memories of her. She, who has never known the depth of my devotion, remains vivid in my mind, sharper than the realities around me. I have lived long enough to see friends and acquaintances disappear. Funerals became more frequent than celebrations. Children I once knew as small and bright became adults with families and responsibilities, and I watched from the sidelines, quietly, always quietly. Their lives, full and shared, made mine feel emptier by contrast, not because I regretted my choices, but because I had not dared to make the one choice that might have mattered most. And so I write. I write letters to her that will never leave my desk. I write them slowly, deliberately, savoring the words I never dared speak aloud. I write about the days that have passed, the seasons I have lived through, the mundane beauty of a life mostly unnoticed. I write about her, always her, filling page after page with the truth I carried silently for decades. Sometimes, I read the old letters I wrote in youth, the ones never sent. My hand shakes as I unfold them, my eyes misty as I remember the boy I once was, shy, awkward, full of longing and fear. I have learned, over these long years, that love can exist entirely within the heart, without action or declaration. It can shape a life without changing the world around you. It can be both joy and sorrow, a presence and an absence at once. My love for her has been exactly that, unseen, unspoken, yet relentless. It has defined me in ways I cannot name. I remember, with clarity, the day I realized how fully she had occupied my life. I had attended a small gathering of old colleagues. People talked of careers, families, and the lives they had built. Somewhere in the conversation, someone mentioned her name in passing, something simple, mundane. And yet, when I heard it, I felt a sudden, almost physical weight in my chest. My heart raced. My mind filled with the vivid image of her laughing by the river, walking down the streets we had known, her ribbon bright in sunlight, her presence vivid as it had been in youth. I excused myself quietly and left the gathering. Outside, the cold night air hit my face. I walked alone, past empty streets and shuttered windows, and I realized that I had been carrying her with me for longer than I could measure. That every decision, every quiet moment, every letter I wrote and never sent, had been shaped by her, by the knowledge of her life without me. And yet, even in the weight of regret, there is clarity. I understand now that my silence was both my fear and my protection. I protected myself from rejection, from embarrassment, from the potential chaos that truth might bring. But in doing so, I also protected her, from a confession that might have burdened her, or altered her life in ways I could not foresee. My love was never meant to imprison her. It was meant only to exist, quietly, faithfully alone. I have come to accept that the years cannot be reclaimed. The opportunities lost cannot be restored. And yet, I still have words. I still have ink. I still have the desire, finally, to speak, not to her, not for her, but for myself. To write the letter I never sent, to give shape and voice to a lifetime of devotion that has existed entirely within me. It will be my last letter. Perhaps the longest, the most honest, the truest. It will contain all the things I never dared say, the admiration, the longing, the fear, the joy of simply witnessing her life from a distance. It will be a confession, not seeking response or recognition, but simply acknowledging the love that has never left me. I have prepared for this moment. I have cleared my desk, gathered paper, chosen a pen that writes smoothly, and waited until the quiet of night when the world outside is asleep. I begin with hesitation, as always, but quickly find rhythm. Words flow more easily than I expected. They carry the weight of decades, the texture of years I have lived in silence, the ache and beauty of a love fully known and fully unspoken. I write of our first meeting, the way she moved through the world with a grace I could never summon. I write of the moments we shared, brief and fleeting, that left a permanent mark upon me. I write of the letters I sent only to the drawer, the missed opportunities, the choices I made that defined the course of my life. I write of the quiet observation, the careful devotion, the knowledge that some loves are not meant to be lived, only carried. And as I write, I feel a weight lift from my chest. The act of speaking, even on paper, even knowing no one will ever read it, releases something that has been held too long. It is not closure, not yet. But it is acknowledgement. And acknowledgement, I have learned, is the first step toward peace. I knew, as I began that final letter, that it would be the last. Not for lack of feeling, never for lack of feeling, but because time has a way of drawing final lines around us, whether we are ready or not. The years had grown heavier, my hands shook, my eyes blurred, and my hearing had dulled. Yet the mind, that stubborn keeper of memory, remained sharp enough to summon her presence, her laughter, the echo of her voice in the corridors of my past. I began by writing of the boy I had been. I wrote of the moment I first saw her, of the ribbon in her hair, the small smile that had altered everything. I described the afternoons at the riverbank, the stolen glances in the hallways, the quiet thrill of simply existing in the same space. I wrote of the letters I had composed and never sent, of the secret devotion that had carried me through youth, through middle age, through the monotony and isolation of a life half-lived. As I wrote, I could feel the years peeling away, returning me to the edges of memory where hope still lingered. I wrote of my fear, the fear that had always governed me, the fear that had made me silent, the fear that had preserved the illusion of safety while allowing the ache of love to grow unchecked. I admitted, honestly, that I had chosen comfort over courage, security over truth, and that my heart had paid the price. I wrote of the life I had lived in her absence. Of the work I had done, the quiet routines I had embraced, the friends who came and went, and the unrelenting passage of time that had left me with rooms full of objects but no one to share them with. I wrote of watching her from a distance, glimpses at weddings, gatherings, brief encounters that reminded me how fully she had lived while I remained still, afraid to step forward. I admitted all of it. Every longing, every regret, every fleeting moment of joy and despair. I wrote until the pages piled high beside me, until the lamp flickered in sympathy with the tremor of my hands. The letter was longer than any I had ever written, yet still I feared it fell short of capturing the totality of what I had carried in my heart for decades. When I paused to rest, I looked around the room. The house, my quiet companion, seemed to lean closer, aware of the weight I bore. The photographs on the walls, friends long gone, family dispersed, seemed to observe in patient understanding. I realized that this letter, though destined never to be read, was no longer for her. It was for me. For the boy I had once been, and for the man I had become. For the years spent in silence, and for the truth finally spoken, even if only to paper. I folded the pages carefully, as I had done so many times before. I placed the letter in an envelope, sealing it with deliberate care. I set it atop the others, the unspoken testament of a life devoted to love that never sought possession or reciprocation. It felt complete, though my chest still carried the familiar ache. Perhaps that ache will never leave me, nor should it. It is the proof of a life lived quietly but deeply, of a love honored even in its silence. And then I sat back in my chair and let the silence embrace me. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, indifferent and eternal. Somewhere in the distance, a clock marked the slow passage of hours. Inside, I allowed myself the rare indulgence of imagining her once more, not as she was, not as I had known her in youth, but as she had lived and would continue to live, radiant and full in the world I could never fully share. I thought of the boy I had been, trembling at the thought of speaking, and the man I had become, steady in his devotion though weighed down by regret. I realized that the truth of my love was not diminished by years, by distance, or by silence. It remained, a constant flame, unextinguished, unconsumed, quietly illuminating the corners of my life. Perhaps some will not understand. Perhaps they will see my silence as weakness, my hesitation as failure. But I know better. I know that love is not always about possession, or action, or recognition. Sometimes it is about endurance, about patience, about carrying another person in your heart without expectation or demand. My love for her was such a thing, and in the final act of writing, I gave it its full and honest voice. I do not know how much time I have left. Perhaps months, perhaps years, perhaps only days. But I have done what I needed to do. I have confessed, finally, in the only way I could. I have honored the love that shaped me, sustained me, and reminded me of life's fragile beauty. And in that act, I found a peace I had never known. Not complete, not perfect, but real. I rise from my chair slowly, feeling the weight of age in my bones, and I look out the window at the evening sky. The stars are just beginning to appear, faint and distant, like the memories of a life lived carefully, thoughtfully, and with devotion. And somewhere, in that expanse, I imagine her, perhaps smiling, perhaps unaware, perhaps carrying her own stories and loves. And I know, finally, that my love has been given its proper place in the world, quiet and steadfast, a testament to the life I have lived. I have carried her all these years. I will carry her until my last breath. And that, I think, is enough.